Loving well is loving fully. Loving well is loving fully. And recently I had a very personal experience involving my youngest brother David that really hit home, and this is why Paul asked me to share tonight. First, let me provide some context. Growing up, my youngest brother David, at a very young age, began to manifest very effeminate mannerisms. Unlike myself and my middle brother and our cousins and our friends who all liked playing sports and pretending we were playing war and all kinds of stuff, shooting each other with our BB guns, David didn't enjoy that. Go figure. My youngest brother, David, was drawn to glittery things, feminine fragrances. And as many big brothers do, I teased and I tormented him terribly. And through the years, I learned to love and care for my brother as he was. My wife and kids also related in love and in grace toward him, toward his partner and his peers. Yet it wasn't until this past Christmas, I'm ashamed to say it wasn't until this past Christmas, 2018. For the first time, I mentioned in a card, a Christmas card to his partner, that we love him as a member of our family. When he opened the card in front of us and he read the message, tears burst from his eyes and poured down his cheeks, and he began to sob. And he choked out, "That's the first time you've said that to me. I love you all too." The beginning of June, my brother started not feeling well. He was immediately admitted to ICU, and tests confirmed that he was experiencing multiple organ failure: liver, kidneys, spleen, gallbladder, pancreas, and his blood pressure was dangerously low. The following Wednesday, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. We changed plans. We went back up to visit him that weekend. He was in a lot of pain, terrible pain. He continued asking us to pray with him, and we continued praying with him. And he said before we left, "I'm at peace because I know Jesus loves me and I love Jesus." The day after I left, on Monday, June 24, my brother died. Less than 3 weeks after his first symptoms and 5 days after he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. In the harried hours that followed my brother's death, as we began to plan services, I wondered how the small, traditional Adventist church of our childhood would respond to David's dying request that the memorial service be held in their sanctuary. This had been my brother's request, even though he had not been a member of the church for many years. I wondered, how would this traditional little church that we had grown up in respond? It was interesting to me that at that moment, I found myself not processing cognitively and emotionally as an Adventist administrator and pastor of 34 years, but as a grieving brother, family member, as one in need of a caring and loving spiritual community. Would my Adventist church step up in love to meet the need in this moment? Forget about how we relate to all the stuff and just love and care. Or would they react like those who were with Jesus in Simon's house did toward Mary? Which brings me back to my brother's memorial service. The pastor of that small, traditional Adventist church that I'd grown up in told me that the church would be happy to be available for that service. And he did that before I even had a chance to ask him. The church members volunteered to take care of all the particulars. The deacons opening the building, someone running the AV system, a pianist playing the piano, greeters warmly welcoming all who came in, even at two different points, at the outside entrance and then in the entrance to the sanctuary, and then somebody in the back of the sanctuary helping people find a place to go sit. The pastor helped with the service by reading scriptures and praying, as well as taking photographs for lasting memories. And 20 minutes before the service was to begin, the church sanctuary was overflowing with a little group of church members, with our extended family, and with a multitude of my brother's friends and chosen family. There we all were together in that sanctuary, as my brother had requested, to memorialize his life. And during an open sharing time in that service, his friends, some of whom were dressed in drag, said things about my brother of which I had no prior knowledge. Things like, "He saved my life just as I was about to commit suicide. When I thought there was no way, it was too dark, he was there. He modeled acceptance and love for everyone. He prayed for me when I most needed it. He welcomed me into his home when I was homeless and gave me a place to stay until I could get back on my feet." Two different people stood up and said that. Wow, humbling. His pastor, Christian brother, hadn't done that ever. He encouraged me, others said. He was always friendly and caring, and many more things were shared. And even the church members chimed in. Some of whom we had grown up with spoke warmly of him. Some said many Sabbaths, as he brought your dad to church, he was the first person to shake my hand after church. He always had a big smile on his face that encouraged me. He was always friendly. The church members said that they would miss him. The members had decorated the fellowship hall. They provided abundant food following the service, which most guests remained for, filling that fellowship hall. Many of the guests told me that they would never normally set foot in a church for fear of being rejected, but that on that day they felt loved and cared for by that church. As I took it all in, tears filled my eyes. My heart nearly burst from my chest, because what had just happened right there that day, that was the church. Those members didn't just open their doors, they opened their hearts. And not just their hearts, they opened the door for everyone there to the heart of Jesus himself. That transcends the labels, the human labels of conservative or liberal or traditional or mainstream or progressive, which are descriptive of human attitudes and behaviors. The only description for what they did that day was they demonstrated the heart of Jesus himself. This was what church looks like when we are filled with Jesus' love and it is flowing through us. Loving well is loving fully.